Hey everyone, so this is Law and Order True Crime, episode 3. Starts off during the plea hearing for for the boys, and we see this woman who's claiming herself to be Megan Lang, giving a card to the boy's mother so that she can call him. So later find out her name is, I think, actually supposed to be Diane Sawyer, so she's giving a false name. And so, anyway, so they both plead not guilty, and then Leslie has the judge get Rayner to stop the leaks to the press because she's worried about the jury being influenced. But outside of the courtroom, she feels that they won't, like a threat or a suggestion isn't going to stop Rayner from leaking stuff to the press. What will stop him is a court order. So, she is questioned by the newspapers, and she doesn't necessarily think that Rayner has a bias towards the boys, but she feels that the media has it out for rich people, considering all the scandals on Wall Street and all the other stuff regarding rich people in the news around this time. So, we see then Glenn is packing a suitcase and taking some of the jewelry out of the Menendez house. So, that in and of itself is I guess, kind of, I thought that was kind of significant, so I figured I would keep that, like, I'd write that down and stuff. Anyway, because he does make an appearance again somewhere in this episode later, which I'll get to. The boys then are told that they might get split up and have separate trials because that's what Rayner, I guess, maybe I'm guessing maybe Rayner is doing that so that in case, like, one brother gets let off, then the other might not, because if they have a child together, then the boys have a higher chance, or both the boys have a higher chance of getting off together instead of separately. And so I guess he wants to maximize his chances of getting a conviction rather than not getting one. So that's what I'm thinking. That's what I was thinking he was doing. Okay, so then it goes to Judalon, and at this point I'm just like, why does her name sound so familiar? Because I feel like her name has been used in one of Johnny Depp's movies before, where he's like, I feel like he said that name, like Johnny Depp has said that name in one of his movies before. I don't know why, and it feels like I've heard the name before in one of his movies. I'm just like, I don't know why I was thinking that, but at that moment I was just thinking that for some weird ass reason. And it was just like, and it never really went away. Like, I always kept thinking that throughout the episode for some reason. Anyway, so we see her, and she's calling Ozell, trying to get a wiretap to get him to reveal something that he real crime of his or whatever. And after the call, she's telling the detectives that the boys said they bought the gun in San Diego, and they were worried about being caught on cameras because there was a camera nearby or whatever. They apparently tossed the guns off of Mount Hoon, which is like a mile away from Coldwater, wherever that is. I don't know where that is. I'm assuming it's between San Diego and LA. I don't know. I'm not from, I don't know SoCal all that well, so I can't say. Anyway, so while detectives are looking for the guns, they get news that there's a ton of gun stores in the area that they're searching, and the car that they can't find has been sent out of state somewhere. So that's just more bad news piled on more bad news. So Leslie and her team are talking about the spending habits of the boy. Okay, so before I get into that scene, this is one of two scenes where I'm like, y'all are supposed to be like graduate professionals here, and y'all can't figure some basic shit out because I'm sitting here thinking like y'all can't figure some basic shit out about what these boys, what why the media is doing what they're doing, or why the boys may have done what they did. And it's like y'all can't figure that. Like y'all really cannot. Because y'all took college courses, and y'all had to have um, taken some basic psychology and sociology courses in that entire time. So I don't know why it's so hard for y'all to figure this shit out at all. And this scene right here is one of them. So her and her team, Leslie and her team, are talking about the spending habits of the boys after the murders, and they. Leslie's like, well, it's the same as before the murders, and the media has bias because they're rich and their privilege of being rich is being used against them. I'm just like, no, like it's not because I'm thinking it's because of the reason why the media is latching on to the spending habits of the boys after the murders is because of the fact that anyone would assume, even a um, even a psychologist would say that the moment someone goes through the trauma of losing a loved one or more loved ones, like more than one person, that person or those people would not be going on shopping sprees and spending thousands of dollars on useless shit. They would not be, okay, maybe not useless shit, but they wouldn't be spending thousands of dollars on in shopping sprees after they found out that their loved one or loved ones were killed, especially a parent, especially if you're talking about losing a parent or a child or whatever. So you would think that no matter if the person is rich uh, or they're not rich, you would think that because they're still human, most humans would be too caught up in their grief to go on spending binges, which the boys did. They went on spending binges. You can't deny that they went on spending binges. You can't deny that after the murder. So it's just like you really cannot deny that they went on spending binges because, I mean, you can't deny that they did that because, I mean, and so it begs the question of, well, if there's if they didn't do anything, why are they going spending binges? Because typically any person who's gone through a trauma, like I've said, would be too grief stricken to get anything besides the bare essentials, which is food and water, and maybe even not that they might even be too grief stricken to do that unless someone else tells them to eat and drink water. So why you would go on spending binges in and of itself is very suspect. Any person can see, like, there's no way that they would not make that correlation. I'm like, so it's just, it kind of irked me that they were saying all that shit and about how, oh well, they were rich before, so why is it because they're still rich after they can't spend their money? Well, it's not the fact that the fact that they're rich. It's the fact that they're spending money and thousands of dollars of it. It's not the fact that they're rich. It's the fact that they're spending so much money after the fact, when any normal person, whether they're rich or not, would be too grief stricken to spend that amount of money. So it's just it just really irks me that they did that. Like they were saying all that shit, which I'm sure that they're during the actual events, that might have been what happened. So anyway, so then they discuss needing to find out what the boys told Ozell on Halloween and the December visit. And they also find out from the investigator that's working on their team that Ozell got a license suspended for improper billing practices, and has 2 complaints pending with the Board of Psychology. Excuse me. One of those complaints is for trying to strangle a woman with a phone cord after raping her. So then it fast forwards to March 13th of 1990 in Ozell's office. And I wanna say that this episode spans into like July. I want to say like early to mid July of 1990. I think I want to say that, like, that's the time frame. So it's like 4 months, maybe 4.5, depending on where we left off last episode, which I think is actually March 13th, to be honest, or around March 13th. So yeah. Anyway, so they're in Leslie and what's her name? Leslie and Lansing. That Leslie is Eric's lawyer and Lansing is Lyle's lawyer. By the way. So anyway, so Lansing and Leslie go to Ozell's office, and he's like, well, Judon didn't go to the police because she was frightened, and she did it to destroy him, which I personally think is true. I personally think that that right there is what he said is true. That she didn't do it because she was frightened of him or the boys or whatever. She did it because she wanted to destroy him, basically. That's like the one and only thing I pretty much agree with him on. And he's like, well, she must have read my notes when she stayed at my house, and Lyle gave me this veiled threat. And Leslie is like, well, I call bullshit because I think you have ulterior motives here, which, again, I agree with. I think that he's always had ulterior motives in my opinion, but, and so basically she makes a veiled threat to him when she and Lansing leave. Lyle is, we go to the next scene where Lyle's getting a visit from his girlfriend, Jamie, and he really does actually wear a wig. He excuse me, again, sorry. So he does actually wear a little bit of a wig because he has a small bald spot. But anyway, that's. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I didn't really know for sure if that was real or not. So, from last episode, so there's that. So Lyle's like, well, Jamie, you're gonna have to tell the police that my father made a pass at you, because, and she's like, well, why should I do that? Because there's really no reason why I should do it. And he's like, he tells her, he drops a bombshell, well, how do you think you got these sponsorships, to play tennis in Europe? It's because he got it for you because he didn't like the fact that you were dating me. I don't know if she has and or will. I don't know if she plans. I don't know if she plans on doing it because they didn't touch on that the rest of the episode. So I don't know for sure if she actually went to the police, because they only showed Judon and Ozell testifying. So I don't know for sure if they will call, if the defense will call her to the stand. So anyway, so the detectives then go to the gun shop, and the woman working there said she can't remember if they came in But apparently, if he showed her the pictures of the guns that were used, then maybe she can name somebody. Okay. Anyway, so Lynan finds a form, the form he filled out to purchase the gun, and the name on it is Donovan Goudreau, Lyle's former roommate. Um, the sheet has it filled out that there were two 12-gauge shotguns purchased on the 18th, which is 2 days before the murder, apparently. So when they ask for the security footage, they get told that the cameras are just for show, to scare the bad guys away. Nah, I guess I'm not that surprised. See, I wasn't really that surprised because on Law and Order SVU, that regularly happens where well, I guess not just SVU, but on SVU and CSI and Criminal Minds and all that stuff, like, usually what happens is the security footage almost always, or the security camera is almost always, or at least half the time, is a fake. So I wasn't really that surprised that happened. So they set out to find a way to prove that Donovan wasn't the actual person who bought the guns, and the guy who helped them in New York was something another aspect of the case. Phones them and tells them that Donovan's alibi checks out, meaning that he was working at the Boxers Bar and Grill on the 18th of August last year, the year before. So Donovan, when the detective leaves the conversation on the phone, Zoller tells Donovan that his driver's license was used to buy the guns, and that and Donovan then reveals that, well, he lost his license when he was thrown out of Lyle's dorm room. So Zoller is pretty happy about that because that, I mean, if they can conclusively prove that the license was still in the dorm room when Lyle and Eric went to go buy the guns, then that's, I mean, dude, it's pretty clear that they are pretty much the only ones who could have taken it. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Anyway. So Lansing questions Lyle about the threat he made to Ozell, and he denies it. Leslie asks Eric the same questions, and he denies him. And Eric is saying, well, it's nice to not be afraid anymore, and Leslie, as soon as Leslie is about to figure out what he means by that, it goes to her and Shalef talking, and her wanting to know about what was on the December tapes. Like, she is really gunning for that thing. Shalef reveals that Ozell wanted to establish motives for why they did it, which is to get away from a dominating father. And Leslie's like, well, why? What about the mother? And Shalef says, well, they did it to put her out of her misery, and basically there was a mercy killing. Well, Shalef is like, well, girl, they did it. You know they did it. But Leslie is all about, well, why did they do it? It's not the fact that she knows, because it's not the fact that they did it, because she knows they did it. She's just wanting to know, she is just wanting to know why they did it. Oh, and she's trying to figure that out so that she can have a good defense for them. So Leslie and Lansing then bring in psychologist Bill Backery to um, to figure out why they did it. Lyle, I guess the first meeting is where Lyle talks about his father and how his father would control who he dated. Eric's hung up on the food being poisoned, and it's just like, clearly they're not getting anywhere, or he's not getting anywhere. He doesn't really get much of anywhere until the last scene or two, I guess you could say. After talking to them back, where he's like, Leslie, look, I was all ready to accept the prosecution's theory that they were pissed off at the parents, so they killed them, and and then they would live off their lives with their money. But Leslie's telling them, like, well, kids rarely ever kill their parents. And he agrees, but he feels like they're sicker than he expected them to be. So, and meaning Lyle is suspicious and paranoid, which makes you anxious. But Lyle is very articulate. Eric is a mess and all over the place. And he feels that he won't get the whole story out of Eric, but maybe he might get it out of Lyle since he seems to be more pleasant. Leslie tells him to keep at it and talk to Eric, even if that means he goes into a psychotic break. Because eventually, because the DA, she believes the DA is wanting to go after the death penalty for them. So Julian then tells the detectives that Ozell would use mind control over her, and you can tell that they are not here for that shit. And that this whole thing comes back up later when she testifies. And anyway, so Leslie and Lansing are showing NBC's doing a special on the murderers, and they're told that ABC is doing the same thing. Donovan is upset because Diane Sawyer. Well, this next scene is where Donovan's upset that Diane Sawyer told him that he wouldn't be quoted or shown on TV, and he was. So she sweet talks him into talking with her colleague. This is where, and then the next scene is where Glenn comes back up, where he gives an interview, and when the reporter turns off the camera, he is told that the boys confessed to their psychiatrist. And he appears to be shocked by that. I mean, I don't quite know why, but anyway. So, when ABC goes to the prison, they are wanting to take footage of the boys' cells, which they aren't happy about. So Lyle convinces the deputy there to let them cover up their stuff. Like, boy, what the fuck you gotta hide? Like, if you really didn't do shit, then what the fuck your ass gotta hide? Like, I feel like that's gonna come back up later in the season. I don't know, man. I don't know how, but I feel like that's gonna come back up, because what the fuck did your ass got to hide if you really didn't do it? Like, if you really didn't do anything, like you pled at the plea hearing, then what your ass got to fucking hide? So Leslie is then seen giving Rayner what for about the whole thing, and after the phone call, she gets word that the media's attorneys want to release the autopsy reports of their parents. So, about 2 months later, on May 19th or May 15th, Eric reveals that he wanted to be an actor. Or no, well, she asked him if he wanted to be an actor, because she was told that. And he was like, yeah, I wanted to be an actor in Calabasas. But his parents made him stop. And he wasn't necessarily angry about it, he was sad about it. Because he's always wanted to be somebody else, apparently. And he reveals to her that when he took the fall for Lyle with the burglaries, he did it because he wasn't important, and Lyle was, because he has this genius IQ or whatever. And his father was like, well, he could be a senator or president one day. And anyway, so this is apparently for the hearing about the autopsies, or the ruling about it. And we hear that the judge granted the release of the autopsy reports. And I think Leslie's telling the reporters at this point that Rayner backed it because it would poison the jury pool and let him get a win. So Leslie, Lansing, and the boys family are seen watching the special on NBC with Diane Sawyer. And she reveals that someone could link the boys to the murder, Donovan Goodrow. And he gives this information about how he possibly left his driver's license in Lyle's dorm room, and that there are tapes revealing the boys confess to the murders in Odell's office. So that's basically the whole special. So anyway, so after watching a special, the boys' maternal uncle is upset because he believes the boys did it and thus doesn't want any more money from the estate going to the boys' defense. Marta's like, boy, what the hell? Like, by doing so, that basically amounts to them getting the death penalty, and she's questioning if he really wants to lose his sister all over again because she is part of them, and yada yada yada. And I'm just like, okay. I mean, because this entire time I'm just like, on the one hand I get that they're family and you gotta stick with family, but on the other hand, like, you gotta admit, a lot of the stuff that they've said and done since their parents were murdered has been very, very suspect. Like, part of me is like, well, then why are you sticking up for them? But it's just like, I get that they're family and they're gonna ride or die no matter what. So, I mean, because it's just like, part of me is frustrated and part of me understands. So it's just like, tug of war with that. So anyway, on June 27th, Julian testifies saying she heard Lyle threaten Ozell from the waiting room when the prosecutor questions her. Leslie questions her and says, well, she questions the authenticity of that, since there are two padded doors that would have blocked out the conversation. Donovan says, well, I heard it, and Ozell has this habit of telling me what his patients said during their sessions, since she was his lover and all that. And then she comes out and says, well, he's right outside this second using mind control over me. And the camera pans over to the detectives, and they're just sitting there thinking like, oh, sweet Lord, this woman had to just say that. She had to say that. And they really could not believe she actually said that. Because, I mean, he had to think it was a possibility since she said it the first time. Like, it was just so funny. I was just like, yeah, okay. Anyway. So then Ozell comes to testify. And he says Judalon was in the waiting room because he was afraid of what the boys would do to him. And so he was just afraid that he was going to get hurt. So that's why he had her there, so that she could be a witness or whatever. And he does corroborate that he told her part of their sessions because of what they would do to her and his family. So Leslie is really going in on him about saying one thing to her and Lansing, and then saying something completely different now, and questions him about how he routinely breaks the doctor-patient confidentiality thing. So it then goes to Leslie at home with a husband, and he wants her to take time off to unplug from this case, which she initially agrees to do, but after hearing a news report saying the Raymond Bucky trial ended in a mistrial, she fears that the blowback from that will be put onto her and her case. So it then goes to July 28th in Rayner's office, where Rayner is told that the jury thought most of the kids on the Bucky trial thought that most of the kids had been coached since the state that they were molested. So he puts Pam back on the Menendez murder case as the lead person. So it then goes to the judge saying that Ozell had a credible suspicion that they were a threat, and therefore the tapes are not going to be considered privileged. Marta then asks how Leslie will fight it, and she's like, well, I'm going to fight it by saying it's wrong. Like, okay, just by saying it's wrong? Okay, you got to do better than that, girl. So Eric is in the cell, and he's having this flashback of when his father, and his brother went into a room to play a game. And this is where I was like, why the hell did we slip into the Saw movies where he says, want to play a game, in that weird-ass voice of his. So it then goes back to Zachary saying to Leslie that he's not getting anywhere with Lyle, and like he's hit a brick wall, and he every time he thinks that he's going to have a breakthrough with Eric pulls back each and every time. So Zachary then tries to talk with Eric again, but once again he pulls back, and then next thing you know, Zachary is playing a tape with Leslie and Marta, which reveals Jose had been sexually molesting and raping Eric since he was young. Eric reveals that 2 years before the murders, or 2 years prior, either 2 years prior or 2 years before the murder, he told, or Jose threatened Eric with a knife because he refused to continue having sex with him. Apparently, Jose has been raping him since he was 11. And since he has hit a wall with Lyle, he asked one of his colleagues who specializes in child abuse, John Conti, to talk to him. So the defense team, the rest of the scene after this is where the second time where I got annoyed with the defense team, because I mean, if you honestly think about it for a second, it makes sense. Like, it makes sense why people do or don't say anything. it makes sense because this scene was where the defense team was like, well, how could the abuse, one, have been hidden for so long with their picture perfect smiles, and two, how could Eric, who was an athlete, not put a stop to it? And there's it's a two-part reason. One being the mother, Kitty. She let it go on because of the fact that she didn't want the abuse to get out, and therefore have the outside world know that their family's pristine image is not all that it's cracked up to be. That it's not picture perfect. It's a facade, basically. She doesn't want that to get out. And so essentially she's enabling it to keep going. That's part of it. And the other part is that despite the fact that Eric is an athlete, this has been going on since he was like 4 or 5 or 6 years old. So at that point, he is not strong enough to overpower a grown adult. He is not. There's no way he could overpower a grown adult at that point. So as time went on, he kept up this mentality that he was powerless in the whole situation, even though when he got older, he became this tennis player and he became physically fit and all that. So, and he was thinking that despite the fact that he may have been physically fit, mentally capable, emotionally capable, or all three. So, I mean, so I can see how he would think that, like, I could see how he wouldn't be able to, for until, like, a year or two before this, he wasn't able to get from under the grasp of his father, because for so long, he had this mentality of, not being able to physically and mentally and emotionally overpower him, because his father had this hold over him because he's his father, and like I said, he was such a young boy when this started happening, which is 4, 5, 6 years old, and so of course he wouldn't be able to do anything at that point, and so he held on to that for so long. So it's just, those two scenes were really just irked me at that point. It really just irked me to no end, and it pissed me off. Because it's like, these are supposed to be professionals, like people who have gotten their degrees and had higher education, and these are people who supposedly have have gone to a secondary or have gotten secondary education, and they've become educated. So how you can't really, I guess, grasp this in some sense? It kind of irked me. It really did kind of irk me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just me and this whole situation. But anyway, that's the entire episode. I'm looking forward to the rest of the series. Like, I keep looking forward to it, because it's gotten pretty good. I'm looking forward to see if Jamie actually, if Jamie actually does say that his father actually hit on her. I'm looking forward to see if she actually does that, and stuff like that. See if she actually does that. So I don't know. I guess one of my predictions is that she will do that. I don't know how far into the season we'll get to see if that happens, but I because I think she'll stand by her man, basically. Like that Tammy Wynette song, "Standing by Your Man." I think she'll stand by him and do it and say that she was hit on by his father, because I mean, after she had found out that his father basically paid for the sponsorships to get her out of the way, I think she'll do it. But though I did see a little bit of of maybe I shouldn't do it, but because I think she saw his conniving ways, I guess, a little bit, but I still think that she might end up standing by her man, but and all that. So I guess that's only my one prediction with this show right now. So until next week, I'll see you guys later. And if you want to discuss it, please feel free to discuss it in the comments below. I'm more than happy to discuss it with you guys. But again, I will see you guys next week. Still haven't seen anything about Catfish, of if it's coming back on. I assume so, because I keep seeing stuff about how they're doing or they're taping episodes now or something. So I don't know if they have decided or when they have decided to come back. Chicago Med, I think I saw something about how they're coming back in November sometime, like November 17th or 18th or something like that. I think I heard something like that they're coming back. Then I haven't heard anything about Elementary, so this is kind of a little update about the shows. Vikings is still definitely coming back on November 29th, so that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to. So that's definitely something else that's coming back up that has a definitive air date. I will give you guys a information as it comes, or as I see it online. But yeah, that's so far. This is like the only one I'm doing right now. So yeah, just bear with me here. I'm sorry. Thanks. Bye.